Last Valentine's Day, I planned the perfect getaway with my girlfriend, Emily. A secluded cabin deep in the woods, far from the city, just the two of us. The place was old but charming, with a fireplace and a large window overlooking the snow-covered forest. It was supposed to be romantic, a night we'd always remember. And it was, but not in the way I expected. The owner of the cabin, an elderly woman named Mrs. Whitaker, gave me the keys with a strange look in her eyes. She hesitated before whispering something about a girl who had died there years ago. She had been murdered by her lover, and they never found her heart. I brushed it off as a creepy local legend, just another ghost story meant to spook visitors. Emily laughed it away too, though I noticed the way she squeezed my hand a little tighter as we stepped inside. The night started perfectly. We cooked dinner, drank wine by the fire, and talked about our future. The warm glow of the flames, the soft crackling of the wood, it all felt safe, intimate. Then the knocking started. At first it was faint, a slow tap against the window. My breath caught in my throat. The cabin was isolated, miles away from any other houses or roads. There shouldn't have been anyone out there. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, a branch brushing against the glass. But then the knocking came again. Louder, more insistent. I grabbed a flashlight and peered outside. The darkness swallowed everything beyond the reach of the beam. Nothing but trees and snow. Yet, as I stepped onto the porch, I noticed something in the snow. Footprints. They led from the woods straight to our window, but there were no tracks leading away. Whoever had been standing there had vanished. A chill ran down my spine. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a sound that made my blood run cold. A voice, soft, almost loving, whispered right into my ear. He's coming. My body stiffened, every instinct screaming at me to run. I turned sharply, the flashlight trembling in my grip. The footprints were still there, staring back at me, taunting me with their impossible end. I rushed back inside, locking the door behind me. Emily stood frozen in the living room, her face pale as she pointed to something on the floor. A heart-shaped box. Neither of us had seen it before. It was old, covered in faded red velvet. My fingers shook as I lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in delicate lace, was something wet and blackened. It took me a moment to understand what I was looking at. A human heart. Emily let out a strangled sob. The knocking returned, this time pounding, violent, desperate. The walls of the cabin trembled. The lights flickered, and shadows stretched unnaturally along the wooden floor. My breath turned shallow as the front door burst open. A figure stood in the doorway. A tall man, dressed in a tattered old suit, his face half decayed, flesh peeling, eyes black and hollow. He took a step inside, and in his hand he clutched a long, rusted knife, its blade dripping with something dark. My body refused to move. Emily's grip tightened on my arm, pulling me back, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. The man's head tilted slightly, his black eyes locking onto mine. His lips curled into something that might have once been a smile, and in a voice that sent ice through my veins, he whispered, "You forgot our anniversary, my love." Something inside me snapped. I grabbed Emily's hand and we ran, crashing through the back door into the freezing night. The wind howled as we stumbled through the snow, our breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind us, heavy footsteps followed, slow but relentless. Reaching the car, my hands fumbled with the keys. The engine roared to life just as I dared to glance back. The man stood in the middle of the road, watching us, the knife still glinting in his grip. His mouth moved, but I couldn't hear the words over the pounding of my own heart. As we sped away, the radio crackled to life, static hissing through the speakers. Beneath it, layered within the noise, a whisper curled through the air. "Be mine forever." We never spoke of that night again. We left the city, changed our numbers, and tried to forget. But every Valentine's Day, without fail, a heart-shaped box appears on my doorstep. And every night since, I still hear the knocking. Valentine's Day has always been a hard time for me. I never cared much for the holiday, and after what happened 5 years ago, I have every reason to hate it. I haven't spoken about that night to anyone, but as February 14th approaches again, I feel the weight pressing down on me. Maybe writing it down will make it stop. It was supposed to be a simple date. Just dinner and a quiet night in with my girlfriend, Lily. We had been together for almost 2 years, and though we weren't the overly romantic type, we still made an effort. I made a reservation at a small Italian restaurant outside the city, somewhere cozy and intimate. It was a long drive through winding roads, surrounded by nothing but trees and old farmhouses. The kind of place where, if something happened, no one would hear you scream. The night started off fine. The restaurant was charming, lit with dim candles, soft music playing in the background. We ordered wine, made small talk, and everything felt normal. But as the evening went on, Lily became distant, her eyes darting around the room as if she was expecting someone. When I asked her what was wrong, she forced a smile and shook her head. That's when I noticed him. A man sitting alone in the farthest corner of the restaurant. He wasn't eating, wasn't drinking, just staring. At Lily. I felt my stomach tighten. He was dressed oddly, an old faded suit, his skin pale, almost sickly. His eyes were sunken, dark circles beneath them, and though the restaurant was warm, his breath curled in the air as if he were standing in the dead of winter. I leaned forward, whispering to Lily, asking if she knew him. She went rigid, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Without looking at me, she whispered back, her voice barely audible over the clinking of silverware. "He's not real." I wanted to laugh, to brush it off, but the way her face drained of color told me she wasn't joking. I turned back toward the man, my skin crawling. His lips had curled into the faintest smile. Not one of warmth, but of possession. Then he lifted his hand. Slowly, he slid something across his table toward us. A small red box wrapped in a silk ribbon. The moment it touched the table, Lily screamed. A blood-curdling, primal scream that made every head in the restaurant turn. Glass shattered, silverware clattered. She bolted from her chair, knocking over her wine glass, red liquid spilling like blood. I scrambled after her, but as I looked back, the man was gone. The chair he had been sitting in was empty. The box was still there, sitting in the dim candlelight. Lily was already outside, sobbing, gasping for air. I grabbed her shoulders, trying to calm her down, but she was inconsolable. "He found me," she kept repeating. "He found me." I had no idea what she was talking about, but I knew we needed to leave. I threw some cash on the table and half-dragged her to the car. As we pulled onto the empty road, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the man sitting in the back seat. Lily refused to speak, staring straight ahead, her hands trembling in her lap. The road stretched in front of us, the trees lining either side like towering shadows. That's when I saw it. a figure standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding on the wet pavement. The headlights illuminated him for just a second, the same man from the restaurant. His face was pale, eyes hollow, lips stretched into that awful grin, and then he vanished. Not into the woods, not away from the road. He simply wasn't there anymore. Lily let out a choked sob, curling into herself. I floored the gas pedal, desperate to get as far away as possible. We reached my apartment in silence. Lily refused to talk about what happened. She just sat on the couch, shaking, whispering to herself. I asked if I could call someone, her family, a friend, but she shook her head violently. No one can help. He won't stop. I didn't understand. I was scared, but I didn't understand. At some point, exhaustion took over, and I dozed off on the couch. When I woke up, the apartment was silent. Lily was gone. The front door was unlocked. The cold night air crept in, and as I stepped outside, my heart nearly stopped. There, sitting on my doorstep, was a small red box, the same one from the restaurant. My hands trembled as I picked it up, my breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The silk ribbon was perfectly tied, as if it had never been touched. I didn't want to open it. Every part of me screamed not to open it, but I did. Inside, wrapped in delicate lace, was a single, rotting human heart. Lily was never seen again. The police searched for months. No leads, no traces. It was as if she had never existed. Her apartment was untouched, her belongings left behind. No signs of forced entry. But every year, on Valentine's Day, a red box appears on my doorstep. No matter where I go, no matter how far I run, and every time it's empty. Because one day, I know it will be meant for me. Valentine's Day had never meant much to me. It was just another day, another excuse for couples to flaunt their love while I went about my routine. Last year, I spent it alone as usual, working late before picking up some takeout and heading back to my small Chicago apartment. The streets were alive with laughter, red balloons, and flower vendors, but none of it had anything to do with me. It was nearly midnight when I heard the knocking, a slow, deliberate sound against my front door. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was a neighbor or a mistake. But then it came again, 3 perfectly spaced knocks that sent an uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. My building wasn't in the best part of town, and while strange things happened, this felt different. Cautiously, I approached the door and peered through the peephole. There was nothing there, only the dimly lit hallway stretching in both directions. I stood frozen, waiting for another sound, another sign of movement. The silence pressed in on me, thick and suffocating. Then, something slid softly against the floor. I hesitated before unlocking the door and cracking it open just enough to see. Sitting on the threshold was a small, heart-shaped box wrapped in a delicate white ribbon. My breath hitched. I wasn't dating anyone, wasn't expecting anything. My first thought was that it had been delivered to the wrong apartment, but something about it felt off. The box looked old, its red velvet cover faded, almost as if it had been handled for years, passed from one person to another. I crouched down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. The air around me felt colder, the hallway too quiet. Against every instinct screaming at me to leave it alone, I pulled at the ribbon and lifted the lid. The moment I saw what was inside, my stomach lurched. A human heart, shriveled and blackened, lay nestled in the box. The smell hit me instantly, thick and rancid, like something left to rot for weeks. Dark fluid had seeped into the delicate lace lining the interior, staining it with something that looked too much like dried blood. Beneath the heart was a small slip of paper, its edges curled and yellowed with age. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The ink was smeared, but the words were still visible. "Be mine forever." I dropped the box and stumbled back, my pulse hammering in my ears. My brain refused to process what I had just seen. A joke, a prank. Someone had to be messing with me. But no part of it felt like a joke. The air was thick with something unseen, something watching. I grabbed my phone and called the police, my voice shaking as I tried to explain. The officer on the other end was skeptical until they arrived and saw the box for themselves. Their faces paled, their casual demeanor shifting to something much more serious. They took the box as evidence, asking me question after question. Did I have any enemies? Had anyone threatened me recently? Did I recognize the handwriting? I had no answers. I had no enemies, no jealous exes, no reason for anyone to leave me something so horrific. The investigation led nowhere. There were no fingerprints, no security footage showing anyone in the hallway, no records of anyone delivering a package like it. The heart was confirmed to be human, but too decayed to be traced to anyone. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept my bedroom door locked, every sound making my heart race. My mind kept replaying the moment I opened that box, the way the air had seemed to shift, like something had entered with it. By morning, I had almost convinced myself it was over. Then, at exactly 11:30 p.m., I heard it again. 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate. I stayed frozen in place, my breath shallow. My hands clenched into fists, every part of me screaming not to move, not to open the door. Then, through the silence, a whisper slid beneath the crack. Soft, slow, and unmistakable. You should have kept it. A chill deeper than anything I had ever felt spread through my body. The air became suffocating, pressing in from all sides. My ears rang with a silence that felt wrong, unnatural, as if the world had momentarily stopped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen in my own terror, but when I finally worked up the courage to check, the hallway was empty. There was no box this time, no sign that anyone had been there at all. 3 days later, I moved out. The police never found out who left the box. There were no further incidents, no more knocking, no more whispers. But every year, on Valentine's Day, I feel it. A presence in my apartment, a shadow that flickers at the edge of my vision, a breath on the back of my neck when I'm alone. And every year, at exactly 11:30 p.m., I hear 3 slow knocks. And I wonder what would have happened if I had kept the box.